So it turns out Charlie Kirk's killer was some kind of trans guy. And I'm here to tell you natural family planning causes trans-by shootings, just like contraception causes drive-by shootings. Patrick Coffin promotes NFP and more guns. Cardinal Burke, however, is part of the problem. And note to Michael Knowles, you cannot eradicate transgender ideology without first eradicating NFP ideology. I'm John Farrell, your NFP spiritual dictator, and this is Annulment Proof.
Some carry hate.
What in the Smokey the Bear in drag am I looking at right now? I mean, what in the Yosemite Sam has turned into Yodemite them am I looking at?
We carry the largest trans pride flag to ever be flown in a national park and unfurled it on the side of El Cap to prove a point that trans is
hanging off of a cliff because of unhinged people like you.
Natural.
That was going to be my second guess. Natural. Of course, trans is natural. I mean, all you need are artificial hormones, fake eyelashes, some makeup, a wig, and a ton of plastic surgery. But yeah, totally natural, or at least it identifies as natural.
The Trump administration and transphobes would love to have you believe that being trans is unnatural.
No, it's actually science and biology that would have us believe it's not natural.
So even people of the pervert community are starting to figure it out. You know, it's like, duh, what is going on here? All right. Just like Catholics are starting to wake up and go, what's going on with all this NFP? How is it natural? I thought procreation was the primary purpose. How are we trying to avoid procreation and calling it natural? This is why I'm saying that when you start saying nature is not about procreation, but about something else, then we have to claim nature for whatever we want, and the trans people are doing exactly that. So I'm saying that this stuff is poison in the legal definition of reality and nature, and until we get rid of it, we're never, like I said, we can never get rid of this trans stuff, and the trans stuff is obviously violent. Okay, so let's go to this video from where is it? Patrick Coffin. Hang on. So Patrick Coffin is big time NFP promoter, as pretty much everybody knows. Okay. And so now he's going that, look, all these redefiners of nature out there, AKA trans people, are shooting up the place. So what are we going to do? The solution is more guns. I like the video. It's kind of a tough guy thing, but let's listen for a minute. We'll talk.
The rifle, what appeared in social media. And by the way, there's a pattern here. The last 9 high-profile killers have also been part of that TRAN community. The second thing I want to mention is that Catholic priests and bishops that endorse this movement kind of have some blood on their hands, don't they? By validating this severe form of mental illness.
Yeah, they do. If there's some bishops that validate the severe form of mental illness, but it stems from, again, when you take nature away from objectivity and make it subjective, which is all NFP does, but you call it unity. I call it the Unitarian heresy. That's my new name for it. NFP is you're a Unitarian. Now, because you say unity is natural. Unity is the natural purpose, but it's never defined. I'm going to get to something interesting about that in a minute. Let's finish up real quick with Patrick Coffin.
And where it leads? Are you listening, Father James Martin? The other thing I want to say is that, Scout, please.
I'd like to meet Scout.
The other thing I want to say is that our bishops have to stop with their anti-Second Amendment propaganda.
That's the reflex. That's the total reflex. I completely agree. So he goes on to say, look, all this Second Amendment gun control, it's like, let's ban the bullets. It's so stupid. It is the dumbest thing. Now, however, that's not, I thought to myself, he goes on in the video and he talks really tough. You know, we got to have all these armed teachers and yeah, totally. Of course. But that's not the solution. It's not the final solution. Obviously, so the final solution is returning to Christ. But what does that look like exactly? And I'm telling you that NFP is the gateway to let everything else in. It's the hole in the bottom of the boat. All the trans is coming in. And we're like, what do we do? Well, hence the video you're watching right now. Let's going to go to a couple other clips and some notes, and I'm going to nail down where this comes from and what are we going to do about it. Let's go to the next. So I was watching Michael Matt just today, and I'm like, he's saying exactly kind of what I'm thinking. We have to return to God, of course, and it's not just about the guns. Hello, Mike. Okay, so also, but it talks about Cardinal Burke, and he shows him in the beginning of the video. And then I got to show you some of these notes about what Cardinal Burke says. Cardinal Burke, I can put the blame right at his feet about this trans stuff. Let's listen to a little bit of the video first. Okay, here, let's go, Michael Matt.
Right?
It's as simple as this. The world has fallen. We are in need of salvation. Our first impulse to prayer is because we recognize that the forces of evil about us, and we also recognize that there is one who's overcome them and who is alive with us, in us, and who will help us to overcome, and that is Jesus Christ. And we fly to his mother to get us to him, take us to him, and in the situation in which we're living, we only need to look around at the proliferation of crime, of violence,
right. Of
murder,
course.
and then internationally the wars, the tremendous destruction of human life.
And we've got to face the reality that this war isn't so easily black and white anymore. The dividing line is not Republican versus Democrat necessarily.
This war isn't necessarily black and white anymore. Let's look at a little black and white. All right, we're going to digress here, and we're going to come back to this video. I got to show you these notes. We got to get through the boring nerd part of the notes. I know you guys don't always like that, but we got to do it. Let's get here, all right? First, we're going to talk about what Cardinal Burke says about marriage and about nature and what the problem is. Ban bullets, not birth control. Well, we've got to do the opposite. We have to ban birth control and have more bullets. But Patrick Coffin is saying, Patrick Coffin's trying to have both. He's trying to say more bullets and more birth control. It's got to be one or the other is the point. The two go together, all right? You want bullets, you want birth control. Excuse me, you don't want bullets and you want birth control. So if we don't want birth control, we do want bullets. But what Patrick Coffin is saying is we want more birth control and we want more bullets. You can't have both here. That's the point. It's either nature or chaos. And then these people don't want, the liberals don't want the bullets because they know that it's a political problem and they're going to get shot. You know, they don't like that. So by security. Whatever in the spirit. So I do agree with what Patrick Coffin was saying. More school security for sure. But it's not the solution ultimately. And the solution is to get back to nature, aka truth. So she's saying, and this is from this article, when does life begin? As a midwife and a physician, we know this is more of a philosophical question than a medical one. And one even scientists can't definitively answer. That sounds really familiar. So this is why you have your opinion, I have my opinion. We use NFP when we want, and you can't judge me, all that stuff, because scientists can't definitively answer what unity is, as in canonically answer, legally answer, naturally answer, all right? It's secondary and it's non-essential. That's what it is. Just like life begins at conception is an objective fact, but these people are blurring it all because they want abortion, just like NFP blurs nature because they want their birth control. And you're going to get bullets flying when you keep promoting this. You cannot. This is like that's. I'm rambling. I'm sorry. A lot of you know E. Michael Jones. He did the video or the talk in Fidelity magazine probably 30-something years ago, how contraception causes drive-by shootings. Family breakdown leads to X, Y, and Z, leads to kids shooting up the place, all right? But these trans shooters are going after because when you start making NFP natural, excuse me, yes, then trans becomes natural too, but it's a unique strain, all right? Let's keep going on our notes here. Now, speaking of Cardinal Burke, okay, and why he's part of the problem, let's talk about it right now. So everyone's heard that there's an annulment explosion ever since the Beatles. Things went way up, and in the 70s, it's a 21,000% increase in the USA. So it's like obviously off the chart, okay? not a little increase. It's not because people weren't as Catholic. No, it's because they opened up the law to mean anything you want. Just like when does life begin is a philosophical question. What is unity is a subjective question in marriage. Like are my relations unitive? Stuff like that. Okay. So, where were we? Okay. Now, this is right out of the horse's mouth. Here's Cardinal Burke. I'm going to put him on the spot because he is admitting nature has no definition. This is why we have trans, because we have invited NFP, which gives us lots of annulments, and trans as part of the downside. All right. And then you can throw gay marriage in there if you want. So here's what he says. And I'm going to break this down for you. It's covered in legal sandwich. It's a 27-layer legal sandwich. All right, but we're going to get to the meat only. It goes, here's what he says. Cardinal Burke, 2011, Our Lady of Guadalupe, La Crosse, Wisconsin, Canon Law Conference, August 9th and 10th. And I'll give you the link. Okay, check this out. It goes without saying that not all elements pertaining to the bonum conjugum can be considered as essential with respect to the consortium totius vitae. That's another way of saying we don't know what good of the spouses means legally exactly. All right, we don't know what's essential and not essential, because what is essential to marriage pertains to validity, and what is not essential doesn't matter. So, and consequently, the exclusion of one of the non-essential elements does not bring about the nullity of the marriage. That's right. So if you, hey, my dress had a stain on it or whatever, it's like, or, I didn't comb my hair, or I had bad breath, doesn't matter. You're still validly married, okay? In other words, while now the bonum conjugum, aka good of the spouses, is considered an essential element. Time out. While now the good of the spouses is considered essence. Okay, so it wasn't always considered essence. Correct. It's still not considered. It's considered essence by people, just like transgender is considered nature, okay? But it's wrong, and you can never make it nature, and you can never make the good of the spouses essential, because only procreation is, okay? You can't change nature. Trans doesn't become nature based on our development of our understanding, and marriage doesn't change based on what psychologists think or any of that stuff, okay? So it says, in other words, now the bonum conjugum is considered an essential element of the consortium totius vitae. So that's just, the common, what do you call it? The people living together with super happiness and all that, the good times, getting together, living together, fine, and all that. There is no accepted, here we go, no accepted description of the contents of the good of the spouses regarding its essential and non-essential elements. So this is a very long-winded, a little bit confusing admission that we have no legal description, aka legal definition of the essence of marriage. And if we, the Catholic Church, don't know what marriage is because we don't know what nature is, because we can't agree and we don't know, then how can we say transgender is natural or not? We can't, okay? So if we can't say that, there's nothing to talk about. These trans people are correct. They're natural. And if you say no, you do hate them, and you're going to kill. Because they're not grounded in reality or truth, they're going to come kill you. That's what's going on. We got to listen to some more stuff that Michael Matt says in the video. It's good. But I need to nail this part down here, okay? So then he says, for example, the good of the spouses is not offended by burning the toast regularly. So then everyone laughs, and you click on the link there. You can listen to the audio and everything. That's like totally stupid. So Cardinal Burke is weak, and he's not defining marriage, because if he does, his name's going to be mud, because he's got all kinds of annulments, of blood in his hands, as Patrick Coffin was saying, on his hands from being a bishop in La Crosse, I think, and St. Louis. Tons of annulments, because he could not. He couldn't describe what was essential. Nature, okay? Look, by the way, Aquinas and also Pius XII admit, I answer that matrimony is instituted both as an office of nature and as a sacrament of the church, all right? Marriage is an office of nature. It's not an office of human nature. It's an office of nature, because all nature reproduces, and mammals reproduce a certain way. We have that in common with all mammals. All right. So it's not just a human nature thing, because human beings reproduce the same basic way, the genetics, the biology. All right. So the little lie the modernists sneak in here is they'll say it's an office of human nature, because we have to do things in a human way, not just an animal way. And actually, that Unitarian heresy, where we make unity, number one, unity is the purpose of marriage, unity of our conjugal act, is below the beasts. Because we're trying to use our generative function to not generate. If we're using it for other things, and that's like, not even the animals do that. That's the point. Lots of saints have said as much. All right. So I hope that is clear to you. And there's no canonists that will dare talk to me, because they're all wet on this. They're in big trouble. Okay. So you normal people have to like listen up and catch on to this. Cardinal Burke, groovy, great. Yeah, he does some good stuff, but I've heard him described as kittenish. He's totally compromised. He's full of annulments, and he's full of nature having no accepted description. So we cannot blame these trans people when they say they're natural. Who are we to judge? Okay. Where does this no accepted description of what is essential come from? It comes from NFP. Once you start legalizing it, you have now created this Unitarian heresy, no longer just for procreation. Okay, we're gonna come back to this in a minute. Let's go down here let me see one other thing really quick. You got me going here. This is cool. So look, here is a priest friend of mine from Boston sent me this quote from Our Lady to the Revelations of St. Bridget. And she said, and I have the exact quote and all that stuff, so I don't mess around when I put stuff out here. The only end for which marriage was established was children. That's the only end. This is when she's talking about her parents, Joachim and Anne. They weren't interested in the flesh or anything like that. And she says, where's the exact quote? Here it is. They willed to live together as married persons should, only conformable to the end which this state was established. What end was this state established? What end was it? To give God children. That is the establishment of marriage for children. Marriage is an office of nature, okay? Humanae Vitae, I'm going to get into the weeds a little bit on Humanae Vitae too, and how it's just a Spirit of Vatican II document. It's so tricky what they've written in here. I'm just figuring it out now, actually, like a couple days ago. So let's get back to some of the video, I suppose, and then we'll get back to some of this juicy part about Canon 1055 and Casti. Hold on just a second.
Necessarily. It's not black versus white, north versus south this time. Not even Protestant versus Catholic. You know what it is. Everybody can sense it now. The great divide, the thing that divides this country right down the middle, is simple belief in Jesus Christ.
That's right.
That's what it is. And the reality is, you don't have to be a Latin Mass Catholic to see that anymore.
The dividing line is: do you think God exists, or do you think you are God? And it's that simple. It has always been that simple. It will never change. And I think our souls are at stake. I really, really believe that. I think Jesus is the only answer. Sorry.
That's right.
Carson's right about that. And I believe he is.
Hang on.
Then, unless we can wake people up, specifically the priests and bishops of the Catholic Church, the Pope of the Catholic Church, right? Unless we can wake them up, this Christophobic witch hunt is just getting started, man. It's just getting started. There's nothing to stop. And I think that's why, after Charlie Kirk was killed, there was a sense of, how does this stop? It's not more security. It's not more cops. I mean, how many times have I said that? There aren't enough police in the world to police us.
Exactly right. It's going to just get started, because whatever caused this trans guy to lose it and go shoot, there's a ton of that stuff. If I was watching some Charlie Kirk, I didn't know how confrontational he was. He was a really good debater for sure. But I mean, dang, those people were mad, and there's a lot of them. And when you start going off on trans, those people, that's a new strain of weird, and they'll kill, you know? So Michael Matt is right here. More guns. So if you watch the rest of that Patrick Coffin video, he does the tough guy thing. He's like, we got to get more guns in schools, guns. Yeah, but again, that is not the solution. And I was listening to Michael Matt just today. I was like, he is totally right. Guns aren't going to help us, you might say.
If we have no interest whatsoever in policing ourselves morally with the Christian moral standards,
What are the Christian moral standards if we have no interest in policing ourselves morally? Do you mean that we need to define marriage? Is that what you mean? Not just talk about the meaning of marriage or the significance of marriage or the sign of marriage or the icon of marriage, but the definition? Okay, hold on to your hat because we're going to do exactly that in a minute. Let me see if we'll finish this off, I guess. Let's see what else we got. We're almost done.
the Ten Commandments, with the law of God, the law of nature, if we're going to throw all that out, there aren't enough cops, friends. There are not enough cops. This witch hunt is just going to get worse.
That's right.
And the thing is, this is to me, as far as on our show, we always try to stress the traditional Catholic argument in here because that's the only thing to me that makes any sense. It's the only thing that really matters, right? This nation, us, your children, your grandchildren, have become defenseless against these demons. And why is that?
Your kids have become defenseless against these demons. Wait till you hear what he says. He's exactly right. Because there's no defense, and because we have to have truth, we have to have true teaching. And when we go to the parish, the church, they say, divorce isn't a sin, annulment is always available, NFP is nature. NFP is nature. It's the Unitarian heresy. I talk too much. Let's listen.
Well, there's a real simple answer, friends. There's a real simple answer. In fact, we come down here every week and talk about the answer. The reason we're so defenseless in the face of evil is because the Catholic Church has hoisted the white flag of surrender to the world, the flesh, and the devil.
Boom. White flag of surrender. Cardinal Burke, you have hoisted the white flag of surrender. And so have you, Patrick Coffin, because when I went to see you, Patrick Coffin, at, where was it? Oh, it was a Catholic Answers marriage conference. And I went right up to you and I started asking about annulments and permission to divorce and all that from the bishop, and you wouldn't answer. You just pointed to the bishop. You need to go talk to him. Well, we need to answer. Someone's got to answer these questions. Otherwise, we're like Michael Matt just said, we're raising the white flag. So let's go look at another white flag. Okay, right here. Share this tab instead. Like here, boobity boop. White flag. Where were we? Sounds like a. I think there was of course, one of the first, not the first, one of the first punk bands I ever saw was Black Flag. I think there's a one called White Flag out there too. But yes, back to that Cardinal Burke. Hello, Cardinal Burke. No accepted description of marriage. There is no accepted description of marriage. Newsflash. Yes, there is. There is an accepted description of marriage. And the accepted description is procreation alone is essential. However, that's not acceptable for NFP. NFP will not allow you to define marriage because unity is number one now. And unity has no legal definition. That's why we have no accepted definition. And we need Cardinal Burke to put the white flag back down and go ahead and admit that all those annulments he granted as bishop were wrong. The ones based on the not enough bonum conjugum out there, not enough good of the spouses. They're all non-essential. This paragraph right here, you can dissect. It's so, if you know what you're talking about, it's easy. But like I said, this is a 27-layer sandwich of canonical goo. But in the middle of it, there's no description of of marriage that we agree on. Until we can agree on what is essential, we cannot get rid of trans. We can't do anything for marriage because we can't define it, because we won't define it, because we've raised the white flag, because NFP has totally got us. We have to have our NFP, the Unitarian heresy. Therefore, we cannot define nature. Not going to happen. Can't do it. Not objective anymore. It's just like good. As a good time, objectively defined, a good hair day, do your best, give it your best shot. Is that A total gift of self? Is that a legal definition? What does that mean legally? Nothing. It means nothing. Let us go down to what I'm talking about. Let me see if I can make these words even bigger. That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there. Okay, now, class is in session. It's not going to be too long. We got to get this straight. I could talk all day about this stuff and get it really, really long, but we're not going to. Canon 1055. This is Spirit of Vatican II put into practice, okay? The canon law is not infallible, but it's super deceptive. We've got to go through this. Check this out. This is what all these annulments are based on. Canon 1055, the marriage covenant, aka contract, but they're just using that word covenant, by which a man and woman establish between themselves a partnership. All right, so now we're no longer talking about a society like they used to call it. They call it a partnership, and a partnership is not the same thing as the contract, okay, the right over the body. That's the public right over the body. Now we're calling it a partnership. So again, I say you must look, the people who made these canon laws, John Paul II, this is some extreme wordsmithing, super crazy. It's once you see it, you're like, oh. So Canon 1055, we got a partnership now. Marriage is a partnership, okay? A partnership of their whole life. And which of its very nature. Nature of what? Nature of what? The nature of marriage? No, the nature of partnership. So they established this partnership. And the nature of partnership is ordered to the well-being of spouses and the procreation and upbringing of children. So now we are saying nature is well-being. That's what nature is. Nature is well-being. And what is well-being? Well, that's up. I like hard-boiled eggs. I like green eggs and ham. And you like cocaine, and you like jumping out of windows of airplanes with your parachute. That's well-being to you. Who am I to judge, right? You like trans. I don't like trans. Whatever. Because it says right here, nature, okay? It's the nature of partnership. It's not the nature of marriage. So that's one little wrinkle which helps this plausible deniability. We didn't change anything. Well, we just changed what we're defining. We're defining partnership, the nature of partnership. So what's going on here? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. It's because people say, look at the Council of Trent. It says marriage is about love primarily. Look at Casti Connubii 23. Marriage is about love primarily, right? Hello? Let's go there. Casti Connubii. I used to call it Casti Connubii, but I was wrong. All right. In 1930, number 23. We'll just read this. It's not long. We got to get through this. This conjugal faith, however. Okay, so this is where this comes from. Canon 1055. And I'm going to sum this up in a minute as to what's going on. This is critical to getting this NFP legal definition nature question nailed down. Casti says, this conjugal faith, however, which is most aptly called St. Augustine, the faith of chastity, blooms more freely, more beautifully, more nobly when it is rooted in more excellent soil, the love of the husband and wife, which pervades, that means all through it. This is fundamental, foundational, kind of like the personalistic norm, okay? Husband and wife, which pervades all the duties, rights and duties, contractual rights. So we have love of husband and wife pervading the legal contract of marriage and holds pride of place in Christian marriage. There's Casti Connubii right there saying love is foundational to contract rights and duties. Love, number one, love wins. Isn't that all we've been saying? Isn't John Paul II saying the same thing? Isn't that all Canon 1055 is saying? The nature of partnership is the well-being of spouses because the nature of marriage is the well-being of spouses because Council of Trent says it, Casti Connubii says it. What is your problem, you NFP spiritual dictator? Why don't you jump in the lake? Let's keep going. For matrimonial faith demands that husband and wife be joined especially in holy pure love, not as adulterers love each other, but as Christ loved the church. Sounds great. Sounds familiar. Sounds like Christopher West. Groovy. Great. This precept the apostle laid down when he said, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Uh-huh. Totally. Sounds great. Yeah. A truth he embraced with boundless love. Okay. As Christ embraced this truth. A truth he embraced with boundless love, not for the sake of his own advantage, but seeking only the good of his spouse. Boom, there's essential good of the spouses right there. What's the problem? It says it right there, dude. Christ, boundless love, total gift of self, boundless. This is what we must do in marriage. This is what marriage is. This is what the nature of partnership is. Marriage is a partnership. It's a covenant. Boundless love. It's not legalistic. You can't, there's no contract. It's a covenant of boundless love, man. Right there, it says it in Casti Connubii, 1930, hardly modernist. And it comes from Trent. What's going on? What's the problem? Because let's keep reading. I will show you, men. Okay. Now, the love which we are speaking of is not based on passing lust of the moment, nor, okay, so there it's like, oh yeah, you can't use your spouse. You have to love them. And it's like totally anti-marital debt. Don't get me started on that. Does not consist in pleasing words only, but in deep attachment of the heart. Yes, deep attachment of the heart. Hello, Christopher West. Where's my theology of the body? Deep attachment of the heart, which is expressed in action, since love is proved by deeds. Woohoo! Sounds great. Where do I sign? This is so great. This is all this is. It's not modernist. It's right here in Casti. This outward expression of love in the home demands not only mutual help. Yep, that's good to the spouses, mutual help, but must go further, must have as its primary, listen up, kids, listen up, must have of its primary purpose that man and wife help each other every day in forming and perfecting themselves in the interior life through their partnership in life. Partnership, there it is right there. The new Code of Canon Law is totally Catholic. It's all the same. They haven't changed anything. Look, perfecting the spouses is primary. Partnership, primary, that they may advance evermore in virtue. Look, help, legal help. I need legal help. People have texted me all the time, dude, you need help. Look, help is not a legal thing, okay? So anyway, so they're going on and on, just gushing here. It's all about what pervades the contract of rights. It's this covenant of help, of total love, and this is the deal, and this is Catholic marriage, the meaning of marriage. Am I making my point? Marriage is love. Marriage is foundationally love. Marriage is primary love. Right. It's right there in Casti Connubii. You can't argue with that. Hang on. I'm setting you up for the fall, you guys. And above all, they may grow in true love towards God. True love towards God and their neighbor, which indeed dependeth the whole law and the prophets. Yep. Got to have love. Love's all you need for all men in every condition or honorable walk of life. They may be initiate the most perfect example of holiness. Place. Look, we ought to imitate the perfect example of holiness. So this is what marriage is, saying yes to imitating holiness. And if things fall apart or hit the rocks, obviously you couldn't do that. Okay. Now, hold on. Then we're going to get to the rest. Okay. So I've just set you up that Mr. Conservative, non-modernist Pope Pius Pius XI in Casti Connubii, 1930 says marriage is love, just like all the NFP'ers are saying marriage is love. Steubenville, everybody. So what's the problem, John? All right. Hold on. Namely Christ our Lord, but right, some of perfection proved by example sent by many saints. Yep. Okay, so now Pius XII, 20 years later, okay, who's bringing in the NFP, what does he say? He says that he's talking about the primary end of marriage in midwives, okay? He goes, look, the truth that matrimony as an institution of nature, which we already figured out and talked about, it is in virtue of God's will, has not as a primary and intimate end the personal perfection of the married couple, but the procreation and upbringing of new life. Okay, time out, stop the press. We just got done with our love fest in 1930, number 23 of Casti. And now in 1951, Mr. NFP, Pius XII, the father of NFP and the trans movement, you could say, because he unleashed nature from its moorings. He says something correct right here. He said something different than what we just read. He says the truth, matrimony as an institution of nature has not as its primary and intimate end the personal perfection of married couple, but the procreation, upbringing of new life. There's the key phrase right there. Marriage as an institution of nature. Let me I got to make that like never mind, I'm not going to edit it right now, but I'm gonna, in the end, we got to cover this as an institution of nature. So marriage in the definition, the description, the way of speaking about it, you can say it's for love, it's for all these things. But when you try to describe its legal institution of nature, it's not about primary and intimate. It's not as intimate end of personal for perfection, being good, being loving, being caring, being all that stuff. No, no, no. Only procreation. Just like Mary said to St. Bridget, and just like it says in Casti 17, procreation primary. Okay. I just thought of one thing from St. Thomas Aquinas. I have got to find it. Hold on. Okay, I found my little digression here. It was a guy named Vale the Major on YouTube. He says, hey, John, check this out. And he sent me something from Aquinas. And they were talking about the primary versus secondary purpose of marriage and how that has to do with essence. And you got to read all of this. I'm not going to do it here, but he talks about the primal perfection. What makes marriage what's the perfection of marriage primarily is consisting in the very essence of the thing. So the primary is the essence, okay, which is procreation. The other, okay, he says integrity is twofold. The other regards the secondary perfection consisting in the operation, all right? That's all the stuff that they just talked about, all the love, all the goodness, all that. Since then, carnal intercourse is an operation or use of marriage which gives the faculty for that intercourse, it follows that carnal intercourse belongs to the latter, the secondary. In other words, the doing the thing, that is secondary perfection. That's a secondary purpose. It's not to the former integrity of the marriage. This is what I'm saying. Primary perfection is procreation. It has the secondary is not essential. That's the point I'm trying to get at with Aquinas. All right. You cannot have NFP and St. Thomas Aquinas at the same time. It cannot be done. If you guys want to argue with me on that, in the comment section, I'm available. And the difference is, one of the things I like about Charlie Kirk, the dude wanted to bring about, he and I were like bros like that. He wanted to bring not only confrontation, but to dialogue. Like, you got to come here and talk to me. Patrick Coffin runs the other way, dude. Totally. Cardinal Burke, he writ me back once, but he's not going to talk. None of these guys are going to talk because they're in big trouble intellectually. They can't define natural essence. Therefore, it's up for grabs, as I've said many times. So this is worth going through right here. And I'll put the link to it and everything. Everything that Aquinas says here. If you want, we can go through it together in the comment section all day, all night, whatever, man. No problem. Patrick Coffin, hope to hear from you. Let's go back to where I was. Let's see, where was I? Okay. So we got done with our love fast with Casti Connubii 23. Then we're cruising through a little bit of Pius XII midwives, right? Okay. Let's see. So it's not like I said, it's the secondary purpose. The non-essential purpose is the perfection of the married couple, because the institution of nature, the only thing that's required for validity, is the upbringing of new life. And you don't need to. By the way, if you look back at Aquinas, he says, "Look, you don't need to produce any babies to be validly married. Because as long as you can do the act is the point. That's why Josephite marriages are valid, because there is no duty to procreate. Okay, now then." Here, we're finally going to bring this in for a landing. Thanks for being patient, you guys. I'm going to make this a little bigger. Okay, 24. So we just got done 23 with our love fast. Then we got Pius XII 20 years later saying, wait a minute, hit the brakes. The truth is, let's go. Do we want the truth or do we want to raise the white flag? The truth is that matrimony is an institution of nature, is not about personal perfection, intimacy, deep intimacy, trueness, goodness, love, all that fun stuff. It's about procreation. Okay. 24. All right, you guys. Sorry for the buildup. Casti 24 shuts the door on all you NFP'ers. The mutual molding of husband and wife. This determined effort to perfect each other can, in a very real sense, as the Roman Catechism from Trent teaches, be said to be the chief reason and purpose of matrimony. Yes, and we just went through all that, didn't we? Provided matrimony be looked at not in the restricted sense. So you can't look at in the restricted sense as instituted for the proper conception and education of children. Okay. What is the restricted sense? What is the institution of marriage? Marriage is an institution, is an office of nature. Restricted. Nature is restricted. Okay. Yeah. For conception of children, not for unity. Unitarian heretics love their NFP. So it's all about the restricted sense, aka the institution, aka the law, aka when you go to get an annulment, it's all about the restricted sense, what institution of marriage. Hold on, I'm not done. But more widely is the blend. Okay, so they're saying is you can all this mutual husband and wife blending together is fine. And more widely is the blending of life as the whole and mutual interchange and sharing thereof. That sounds really familiar. It sounds like Canon 10 and 55. As long as you're not defining marriage, because a definition is by definition restrictive. Define. You know, at the end of your piano music, it says fine. It's like open and shut, man. A definition of nature isn't infinite. Okay? A definition of love is infinite. So we have to restrict it. Love is not restricted. Nature is, that's why trans is off the reservation, unless we're all living in canon 1055 world. All right. But what is let's go back to 1055 of the new code, which comes from Humanae Vitae. Excuse me. It comes from Gaudium et Spes. And let me think. There's one other video I wanted to show. Just a minute. I have to think of this for a minute. Okay, never mind. That was I was thinking of a Catholic Answers video, which I have to react to, where they were talking about how NFP comes from Gaudium et Spes, which it does. No, it comes from Pius XII, who goofed up. He said a bunch of he plays a good game. He said a bunch of great stuff, and then he says, "Whoop, NFP." That's where he broke off the tracks. We're not going there right now. We're going to stay on target, just like in Star Wars, Canon 1055. So what Canon 1055 is the canon law, which gives us transgender ideology, all right? Because what Canon 1055 has done is taken marriage from the restricted sense and defined it as the unrestricted sense. That's my point. Quote me on that. There's the problem. We are identifying marriage as infinite instead of restricted. We took the roof off the house, and the definition of marriage goes into outer space as far as you want it to go because it's infinite now. So to recap, Casti Connubii 23 is all about marriage as love. Casti Connubii 24 right here says the institution of marriage is not love, it's conception and education. Okay. So now let's return to Canon 1055, which is now the new institution of marriage, 1983 style. The marriage covenant, man and woman established between themselves a partnership of their whole life by its nature is ordered to the well-being of the spouses, and procreation has been baptized and been raised to the Lord the dignity of a son. So they took what was secondary, according to Aquinas, right? The secondary ends, all that has to do with it, and what is non-essential and what is not institutional, and they have made it institution. So it's like buying a house with a property line, except it turns out that the entire world is your property line. So you don't own it. This is Doctors Without Borders, Country Without Borders. This is marriage without borders. There's no more restriction because it says nature is all about well-being. Okay. People say that's talking about natural marriage, the restricted sense. If nature is well-being and is restricted to well-being, and well-being is infinite in its legal possibilities, everyone's dead meat. The trans shootings will continue because there's nobody, because the church has raised the white flag. Cardinal Burke won't define marriage. Cardinal Burke is compromised like everybody else is. All the bishops, all these guys compromised because they want their NFP and they want their annulment, and that's why like all the canon lawyers are bad news, because they're all full of annulments too. They can't go back. If they've done, it's like doing a bunch of abortions and saying, I can't look at myself in the mirror, I'm just not going to talk about it. So when you try to bring nature to the trans people, what do? They shoot you, right? Charlie Kirk, that's what happens. You bring trans people reality, you get shot. You ever been in the bar or something talking to people and you bring up abortion or something, somebody gets really mad? I'll bet you half the people listening to me have raised their hands. That's right, because people get triggered when they're living some kind of lie and you bring natural law into the picture. Okay, but trans is a special kind of freaky, and they get weird. They'll come get you, man. So I agree with Michael Matt. This is just the beginning, and until the church will be forced to deal with this stupid boomer JP2 house of cards, all you need is love, that NFP is nature. Natural family planning is unnatural family planning, because all family planning is unnatural. But we have got this crazy Frankenstein weird thing called Canon 1055, which has taken the infinite secondary ends of marriage and made it the finite restricted primary. All right, that's the problem. And the way it's done with plausible deniability is they're saying, no, we're not referring to the nature of marriage, we're referring to the nature of partnership. Okay, and everybody runs with it, and that's how weird it is. So you want to keep it simple, just ask Cardinal Burke, who admits there's no accepted description of the essence of marriage, which is an office of nature. So we can't describe nature legally. Are we going to say that trans is wrong? No, because just like this chick right up here, even scientists can't definitively answer. Even the Catholic Church, even Cardinal Burke can't definitively answer. When does life begin? When does procreation become primary? When is unity legal? When is a secondary purpose not okay? It's a philosophical question now, because it's all blended together in Canon 1055, because this is our new essence of marriage. It's subjective. It's infinite. There's the problem right there. Hopefully I made that pretty clear, okay? I think that's all there is on this. All I'm going to say is, go ahead and comment your heart out. All right, so I think we did a pretty good job of summarizing and explaining the point that NFP ideology gives birth to trans ideology, and they're going to go together, and that's the only solution, is to get rid of the NFP by defining marriage. That's all we can do. Anyway, if you're not against NFP, you're not on the team, so get out there and stay toxic. Gen X.